Adam Guttridge is the Mets' new assistant GM for systematic development. Anthony J. Causi PORT ST. LUCIE, the talk here at Mets camp, in the wake of a hellacious two-year run that spared few, is of tearing down walls, breaking down barriers, speaking a universal language. Can Adam Guttridge be the Mets' Abraham Lincoln? If the fate of the Brodie Van Wagenen era will be determined by myriad factors, few would dispute the work done by Guttridge and his staff ranks among the most important. The Mets must catch up to the most innovative and industrious of their competitors. Van Wagenen, their new general manager, will lean on Guttridge, his assistant GM for systematic development, to lead that charge. And the 33-year-old Guttridge's plan calls for unity, not only of purpose, but also, somewhat concretely, of role. What's scouting? Scouting is the recording of primary information, Guttridge told the Post on Monday at First Data Field. It's turning that information into analyses. It's taking analyses and synchronizing them into what ultimately becomes judgment. What is research, then? Research is the creation or provision of primary data. It's turning data into analyses, analyses into judgment. That's going to go on. There actually isn't a difference between analysis and scouting. Scouting is analysis. Analysis is scouting. There's no space between them. And there's your answer for how much these revamped Mets will rely on scouting versus analytics, the usage of data collected by calculation, observation or electronic means, with new methodologies constantly emerging. Guttridge rejects the premise of a divide between the two. For an organization that ranked among the least equipped to utilize analytics, consider that they employed 3 full-time analysts last season, whereas the Yankees utilized about 20, the Mets are moving closer to what has become standard operating procedure in Major League Baseball. A reconfigured front office carries a reconfigured philosophy. Adam Guttridge right with Brodie Van Wagenen. Anthony J. Causi, I think what we're aiming for here is not to have statistical analysis, player development, scouting, but really applying good science and good decision-making to all of our disciplines and bringing them all together towards a cohesive goal, he said Saturday, in the first of 2 interviews. Yes, I'll be involved in player development, but really, we don't see a wall between player development and scouting, player development and analysis, scouting and analysis. These are all kind of the same disciplines, and the job of this department, again, is to apply good science and good baseball judgment toward improving all of those areas. The size of the department, much like the size of the Mets' player payroll, will tell the full story. We've already more than doubled what existed before, the 3 analysts, and we're not done yet, Guttridge said. T.J. Barra, who ran the Mets analytics previously as the director of baseball research and development, still works for the team, a club official said, yet he has not been in camp. Van Wagenen's predecessor Sandy Alderson carried his own strong reputation for utilizing analytics. After all, he is the mentor for Moneyball protagonist Billy Beane of the A's. However, the Mets didn't commit financially to Alderson as they are now for Van Wagenen and Guttridge. Asked whether he believed the Mets owners had fully bought into the importance of analytics, Guttridge said, simply, yes. Van Wagenen bought into Guttridge based on their previous relationship when Van Wagenen ran CAA's baseball department and Guttridge worked for Normalized Empirical Individual Forecasting Index, a baseball assessment and projection service he co-founded after leaving the Brewers in 2015. At NEIFI, Guttridge consulted for several big league clubs. He declined comment when asked if he also did work for CAA. His first big-time consulting gig came as a high schooler. As a Rockies fan at Riverview High School in Sarasota, Florida. Yes, it's weird that a Florida kid would root for the Rockies, he acknowledged. Guttridge put together a study on how the hitter-friendly Coors Field impacted the Rockies' hitters. It caused its own players to hit worse on the road, Guttridge said. So they got this great benefit at home, but they also hit worse at the road. He referred to it as the hangover effect. I was blown away that he was still in high school, Dan O'Dowd, then the Rockies GM and now an MLB Network analyst, said in a telephone interview. I knew one thing, he was a lot smarter than I was. Guttridge attended the University of Colorado Denver for the sole purpose of being close to the Rockies, he said, and by 2005, he was the team's one-man analytics group, O'Dowd said, laughing. For 6 years, starting in 2010, Guttridge worked for the Brewers, climbing to manager of baseball research and development. With the Mets, under the high-energy Van Wagenen, Guttridge will have wide latitude at the outset. He also has some work to do to achieve his holistic vision. I didn't really use analytics prior to this, Noah Syndergaard said. But I look forward to using all the tools that Brodie has brought to us. It's good to know, Robinson Cano said of the available information, but I think at the same time, you've got to stay with your approach. It's a constantly evolving process, said Michael Fishman, the Yankees' assistant GM, who has headed Brian Cashman's embracing of analytics since 2005. If it's something that's not being used, it doesn't add value. It's kind of an iterative approach. Build something, try it and adjust. Continue to tweak it and find ways. Adam Guttridge talks with Robinson Cano. Anthony J. Causi. Just last year, for instance, the Yankees added Zach Fierro, an analyst, to their traveling staff. Fierro, who found himself in the middle of a controversy when the Yankees players voted him no playoff share, will return to that role this season. Mets won't travel with an analyst, Guttridge said, yet two of their new traveling officials, quality control coach Luis Rojas and advanced scout, replay coordinator Mike Wickham, are particularly well-versed in analytics and will aid the coaches and players. And just as important, the Mets want the flow of thought and information to travel both ways. If we're talking about pitching, it can originate with pitching coach Dave Island, or it can originate with us, Guttridge said. Dave can say, hey, I'm looking at this guy. Here's what I believe is going on. What do you see? We can look at a guy and say, hey, have you considered, can this guy throw his slider here, or, what's going on there? It can originate in either place. We kind of work in support of each other. You'll have a good ambassador of this philosophy in new hitting coach Chili Davis. I did it with Mookie Betts and Xander Bogaerts, recalled Davis, who worked as the Red Sox's hitting coach from 2015 through 2017. I said, let me see how many first-pitch strikes they've gotten from the beginning of the season until now. Mookie has seen 383 first-pitch strikes. How many swings has he taken at them? 26 swings. We've got to start being ready to hit a little earlier because I guarantee you, they're going in their pitchers' meetings, just lay the first ball in there. He ain't swinging. I am not opposed to analytics. I think you blend that into what you want to teach, and it confirms each other. The Mets hope to confirm each other plenty this season, to start a run of sustained success that has largely eluded their franchise, and meant the most glaring gap of all, that between them and their emotionally scarred fan base. If they can pull that off, then Guttridge can use whatever terminology he'd like to describe that feeling.